Welcome back everyone, my name is Lee Liver's Kitchen. Today we're going to make orange and lemon marmalade. Homemade, and it's so easy to make. So I got gifted these lemons and oranges and I needed to use them up. So I thought, let's make some marmalade. Now I've never made marmalade before and I've looked at a ton of recipes and I've finally found a recipe that was simple enough to actually follow. Just a lot of the recipes were just so hard to actually follow. So from what I've read, this is what we're gonna make today. So for the ingredients, it's pretty easy. We're gonna need any citrus you want. So citrus has so much pectin in it, and that is what's gonna actually thicken our marmalade and make it gel as well. So I've got a mix of lemons and oranges here, and we're gonna be using them today. And for every kilo of citrus you use, we're gonna use a kilo of sugar. And we're gonna be using that ratio today, and that is what's gonna make it so much easier. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna actually wash all our lemons and oranges, just get any excess dirt or any coatings or anything that are on them, and then we're gonna slice them up. So there's two different ways that we can actually make the marmalade. So the first way is to use the pectin from the actual skins of the actual fruit to make the actual marmalade gel. And that's what I'm going to use today. And the reason why is because you don't need as much sugar as if you're going to be using a pectin in it as well. If you're going to use a pectin based one, then you do actually use quite a bit more sugar, and I really did not want to do that today. So this is a little bit harder this way, but I know it's going to turn out even better. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to slice up our lemons. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to trim off our sides, like so. And then what we're going to do is going to run our knife around the side. And the great thing about using all of this is we're going to be using the whole lemon basically, so we're not going to be wasting anything. So we've taken the skin off, and you can see I've taken off all the pith and everything. Then we're just going to quarter the lemon and just make sure that if there's any seeds or anything. These are small lemons, so there's actually no seeds in these. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to slice that up. And you want to leave all this white pith on because that's going to help it all gel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these segments into a bowl. And then all of the skin, I'm just going to finely slice that. And then all of that's going to go into the same bowl as well. All right, and I'll see you back when I've got all of these cut up and segmented. All right, so that's all that done now. So it took me a little while, so it took me about an hour to do. So I actually ended up sitting down and actually doing it, which was making it a lot more enjoyable. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually weigh how much of our lemon we've got here, and that's going to determine how much sugar we're going to actually use today. So I've got my scale here, and I've got a bowl in here. I'm just going to tear that so that reads 0, and then what we're going to do is we're going to fill this bowl up, and we're going to see exactly how much sugar we're going to need. Now, a lot of recipes will tell you how much lemon you need and sugar, but I wanted to use all of this up, so this is the best way to determine that. So we have 1.6 kilos of lemon. So that means we're going to need 1.6 kilos of sugar, which is actually quite a bit, but this is a condiment and you're not going to use a lot of it. So while I've got the scales out, I'm also going to weigh out my sugar for tomorrow. So I've just taken some out there. You got 700 grams there. It's going to be a lot of sugar. All right, so that's our 1.6 kilos of sugar for tomorrow. So we can put that aside. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually soak the rind overnight. So anything between 8 and 12 hours, we're going to soak this. And that's because what it's going to do, it's going to soften all the skin, and also it's going to help release all that pectin out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to barely just cover this with water. And then what we're going to grab is a plate, and we're just going to pop that on top to make sure everything stays under that. And we're going to put this into the fridge and just let that sit. So minimum 8 hours and up to 12 hours. If you want to do this the next day, that would be a lot easier. I'm going to be doing this tonight. So I'll see you tonight. All right, so it's been 8 hours now. You can say this looks a little bit different now. A lot of those juices have come out of the segments, and those peels are softened up nicely. So now we're going to start boiling the mixture. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it over to the stove, and I'll see you there. All right, so I have my pot here that I usually use for canning. So this is just a stainless steel pot. I don't have a non-stick or enamel pot that is actually big enough to actually hold all this. So I'm going to be doing it in this, and then I'll have to empty this and use it for my canning as well. So we're going to pour all of this water, everything into here, because all that water contains all that pectin in it. So we want to make sure we keep that. Get all of that in there. And now we're going to bring this to a boil. And we're going to cook it for about an hour until these peels are nice and cooked down. And it's also reduced by about a quarter. So it's going to be nice and condensed. And then we'll start adding the sugar. All right, so this has been cooking for about 45 minutes now. And I'll just show you how it looks now. So it's condensed down quite a bit. And then also, if you take out your peel and everything, you put it between your fingers, that just disintegrates. So that means we're up to the next stage now. That water has evaporated off a lot now. And the reason why we want to get rid of that water is because we're going to add the sugar now, and we're going to bring it up to 105 degrees Celsius or 220 degrees Fahrenheit. And the more water that's actually in there is going to actually slow down that process, and it's going to take a lot longer. So we're actually better off cooking that off first. Now we can add our pre-measured sugar. So remember, I started with 1.6 kilos of the lemons. I've got 1.6 kilos of sugar here. We're going to add that. And this is the time when we're going to have to really keep an eye on it, because it is going to catch on the bottom of the pot, especially because this is a stainless steel pot. I really did not want to do a stainless steel pot, but I knew this would not fit in my Teflon or enamel pot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let that simmer, and we're going to let it just bubble away. It's going to take probably about another 45 minutes for it to actually clear up. And then after that, the bubbles are going to start to actually get bigger and thicker, like you're almost bubbling away passata sauce. And then at that stage, we can start taking the temperature. And once we hit 105 degrees Celsius or 220 degrees Fahrenheit, then it should be at the gelling stage, and then we can test it, and then we should be ready to jar it all up. All right, so we are back. So you can see these bubbles that can change now. It's just a nice smooth bubble. And I just decided to check temperature, and that's currently at 103 degrees Celsius. Once this reaches 105 degrees Celsius, then we'll test it. So what I've done is I've put a plate into the freezer, and when we hit 105 degrees, then we'll take a teaspoon of this mixture, put it onto the plate, and do the smudge test, and just verify that is all good. But right now, we're looking pretty good. All right, so that's almost at 105 degrees. So I've got just a few things to set up. So we've got our jar lifters, we've got a canning funnel, and then we've also got a headspace checker, and I've got a ladle as well. I'm gonna grab another thing to set a pot on, and I've got our lids and our jars all soaking. All right, that has officially hit 105. All right, so this has been in the fridge for 2 minutes. Look at that. All right, so we're ready to jar this up. All right, I don't know how many jars this is made. I think it's gonna make maybe 6 or 8. So we're gonna fill these jars up to a 1/4 of an inch headspace from the top. And if you look at this, where that top ring is, that's a 1/4 inch. And I'm gonna have to work fast because this is already gelling up, which is great. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna wipe down the rim. So just use some wet paper towel. You don't need vinegar because there's no actual fat in this. Vinegar is just there to actually break down the fat. And then once you wipe that down, you can put your canning lid on. Now, here in Australia, we use the one-piece canning lids a lot more. They're more readily available. And then we just want to do finger tight so that we can't turn it anymore, but only with our fingertips. All right. And now we're going to get them into the counter. All right, so I've got my pot back here, so I'll just rinse that out because I need this for my actual canning. Now, I've got basically a cake stand. I'm going to put that in the bottom of my pot here. Then I've got some hot water here that I was keeping warm on the stove. Just enough to cover the bottom there. And now we're going to use our jar lifters and just lift them into the counter. Now, obviously, you can water bath can these as well. So what you do is put the jars in, cover them completely with water by 1 inch or 2 inches. And then once it comes to a rolling boil, then you can do your processing time. We're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to be actually steam can this. So we're going to use a steam inside the actual canner to process these. All right, those are in there now. So we're going to grab our lid, put that on top. We're going to turn on the stove, get that full bore high heat. And then I've got my thermometer here again. I'm going to put this into the hole here. What that's going to do is that's going to check the temperature of the actual steam inside the canner. So once that reaches 100 degrees and it doesn't go up any further, that's going to indicate this canner is full of steam, and then we can start processing for 10 minutes. All right, so now this is 100 degrees. Now we know all the steam in this is at 100 degrees now, so now we can start our processing for 10 minutes. All right, so the timer has gone off for 10 minutes. We're going to turn off the gas off the stove, and you can see this hasn't dropped below 100 degrees, which is fantastic. If it does drop below the 100 degrees, you do need to restart your processing time. Keep that in mind. So you want to keep it above that. So now we're going to leave this for 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes, I'm going to take the lid off, Let them sit for about another 5 minutes, just so everything adjusts to the temperature and everything. And then we're going to take them out. All right, while it's processing, I've got a little bit left here, so I thought I'd try it out while we're waiting for the process. Look how beautifully that has actually gelled up. Look at it. It's almost like proper jam. No pectin, and we didn't have to put extra sugar in it for the pectin. So I don't actually keep any bread in my house. I keep low carb wraps to take to work, but I don't actually keep bread in my house. So I'm going to put in one of these wraps and we're going to try it out. So I'm going to be honest, I think I've done a really good job considering this is actually my first time making marmalade, and it did take a little while to actually cut up the lemons and everything, but apart from that, it's actually not that hard. I was a little bit nervous, and that's why I looked at multiple recipes and everything. Once I found this recipe, I'll link it down below. It did seem a lot easier. So I've just used this recipe and it turns out really good. Look at it, it's gelled beautifully. Let's try it out. For a first time, I think that is bloody good. Now, it is a little bitter, and I think it's because I did use all that pith. Maybe I will try a recipe with the pectin, and that way we can actually remove all that pith because we're using a pectin to put into it rather than using the actual pectin from the actual skin. But it turns out really good. I'm really happy with that. All right, so now we're going to leave these at room temperature on our bench on a chopping board for up to 24 hours, and we're just going to make sure that they have it sealed completely. So you can see already we've got 1, 2, 3 already sealed. The others might just take a little bit longer. Once they're sealed, then we can put them into the pantry, and anything that doesn't seal, we can just put into the fridge and make sure we use it first. But if you like this video, don't forget to give it a good old like, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.